No, that was even after I was engaged.
Married?
No, he come home from overseas and he called Altman's and said, I'm home. And I hadn't seen him in 2.5 years. And I had corresponded, and it was while we were corresponding that he found out I liked him. And, well, he said, we'll see what develops. Right.
But I have to find out.
Right. So for 30 days we saw every show on Broadway, every nightclub. We had a ball. And he said, would you marry me and I'll give you a ring for Christmas. He still claims that we met on the telephone. But Mama put it in the home news immediately. So he was stuck. But then he went away again. And he couldn't come home for Christmas, so he sent his ring by way of his mother to me. Then he had to go back overseas, so he went AWOL for 3 weeks. The first week, of which I did not know, he was up in Yonkers whooping it up. with 2 other girls and 2 fellas. Then he came home and he walked in the door and I looked at him and he said, I'm home on furlough. I said, I bet you're AWOL. And he almost fainted. He said, you have a channel to the devil. So then he went back overseas. We went downtown, and every time an MP looked at him, he'd get jitters. He had a drink in his hand, and you could hear it across the room with the ice. He said, let's get out of here and go home. So we went back, and he was fined and brought into corporal. Then he went back again for another 2 years, wasn't it? 1.5 years. Then he come home, we got married, and
here we are.
Here we are.
33 years later.
33 years, like 32. God, you don't even know how many years.
Since there were some unsubstantiated allegations made on the previous tape, I think William Reichert deserves a rebuttal to that. Would you like to talk about that?
I can remember the Bronx Home News, and I says to my wife, my present wife, I said, I'm going to give you a ring for Christmas, meaning a ring on a telephone. Next thing I know, it was in the Bronx Home News, Mr. and Mrs. Langan is happy to announce the engagement of their daughter Dorothy to William J. Reichert, Corporal in the U.S. Marine Corps. But seriously, I can remember when my mother used to send me out to the store and we used to move. When I get home, the house was empty. I really should have known better, but I think she was trying to get rid of me.
All right, give us some of your earliest memories.
I can remember when I was a kid, about 3 years old, we used to line up all of the chairs, and we had this ashtray, and I was the steerer with the ashtray, my plop-plop, as I was known. At this time, of course, I was 3 years old, I still couldn't talk. I used to call it a plop-plop. I can remember my mother, my wonderful mother, how she used to work hard for us. And we had this salesman that used to come in, you know, the Buck a Month Club, and we used to buy blankets and curtains, and I don't even remember his name, but I know we had a saying from when he used to walk in every week. He'd come in, and of course he'd sell my mother anything. She didn't know any different, you know. I also remember in 90th Street where I used to have to go down and get coal, steel wood, steel coal, bring it up 4th flight. I don't think we ever lived in an apartment other than 4th floor. I remember the time they moved the piano into our house. It took them 4 blocks to get the goddamn piano up to the 4th floor and bring it into the front room. And then when we left, we had to cut it up, and it took us about 6 guys to cut up 1 piece. Oh, I've had many beautiful memories, especially of my mother.
Did you go to St. Andrews?
Yes, I did. I remember the first day I was in the place. I was in the 6th grade, I think, when we came up to the Bronx. and there was this kid, Rothschild. He's a big fat kid. He was in the 7th or 8th grade, I guess it was, and we used to play hockey in the street between Teller Avenue and Morris Avenue. And this kid, he was obnoxious. He would go right between the goalies. The goal posts were the two sewers in the street, and I had a fist fight with this kid. And he must have been at least twice my size, you know. But I almost got thrown out of school that day. Except when the men saw the size of the kid. He was all black and blue from a black eye that he had. I also remember ice skating in Teller and on Sherman Avenue. The good times we used to have. Yeah, that was another thing. I was the only kid that had sense enough to put a pillow on my sled. Everybody else used to kill themselves going belly whopping, and I'd have this nice soft pillow. I remember Harry Hirschman's candy store. Dell. We used to go in there for sodas and hot chocolates, especially after the sleigh riding on a soft pillow. I remember my Uncle Willie, who got me my first bicycle when he was working working in this apartment house as an elevator operator. He brought me over my first bicycle. He also brought me over my first sled that he put together again. We were down Central Park going down the hill, and it all fell apart.
What about your paper route?
I remember Mrs. Langan when she lived on 215. She never paid me a dime. Oh, this is really the truth. She used to pay Harry Block, but she never paid me, and I took care of Block's route. I remember going up and down those stairs and over those roofs.
This was at Bronx Home News?
Bronx Home News. That was a great
How
paper.
long did you deliver that?
About a year and a half. Then I finally went bankrupt because it used to cost me $4 to deliver a week's papers.
Yeah, the Langan had paid a bill.
Well, that was one of them, and there was a few others. Like I think there was Ann Helen. She didn't pay either. She wasn't a good payer. Kids used to come out and say, "Gee, I made $16 this week." I'd come out and losing $4.
Remember at the service, when it's service?
Yeah.
Was that a veterans hospital?
That was a veterans hospital up there, Jim. There's no truth to the rumor that Dorothy started with, especially with that one about the Valentines. We knew it all the time.
What about your Purple Heart?
Oh, that was
Go in the back.
that was something. That day, I remember that day. I was walking along, and everybody says, drop along this ridge, and all of a sudden I felt a trickle of, like a pebble hit me, and I saw blood, and somebody yelled, "Corman," and I said, "I can walk." In fact, I could run like hell out of that place. As I went backwards, some guy says, "What happened to him?" And somebody said he was shot in the leg.
Then you decided to come along. Did it go in the front and out the back, or in the back?
I don't know whether it went in the front or out the back, or out the front and in the back, but I remember playing cribbage with the nurse for back rubs.
This was on Okinawa?
This was on Okinawa.
When do you win the dice game?
Well, when we first went overseas, it took us some 80 days to get over from Norfolk, Virginia to Caledonia, and all we had was 2 meals a day, and we used to play cards and dice and crap, and I think I won $500, and I sent it home to my mother, and she thought it was for her. It was really for me. So naturally, when I come home, there wasn't a penny left. You know, she spent it all.
What kind of a ship was it?